exploring interceptors with examples. So what actually are interceptors? Well, the role of interceptors is to intercept the request and response, like this. It looks like hooking into HTTP request and response on an application-wide level. So how do interceptors work? Well, when our application makes an HTTP request, an interceptor can modify the request before it gets sent to the server. This might include adding headers or logging or some other kind of logic. okHttp then forwards the request onto the server. And in return, when the server sends back the HTTP response, then before the response handlers methods of our retrofit are called, interceptors can again act upon the response object. It can read the headers, store data, and much more. And thereafter, finally, the response falls on the callback function of the retrofit, such as onResponse and onFailure. So these interceptors are a powerful feature of retrofit and okHttp. Now in the previous section, we already implemented the logging functionality. Well, this logging is basically an interceptor that simply intercepts the HTTP request and response and log it within our logcat. Similar to logging, we have other interceptor as well, such as applying HTTP headers in an application-wide level to all the requests. Then we have some authentication interceptor, along with interceptors that allow to handle error application-wide. So in this video, let us see how to use HTTP headers. So within our application in the destination service, we added headers here to this function. Now what if I want to apply the same headers to other functions as well? So in that case, it won't be a good practice to repeat the same code again and again for each of these functions. So here comes interceptors into picture. So right now I will simply remove these headers and then go to my service builder. So here I will create my own custom interceptor to apply headers application wide. Then define our interceptor. Create the anonymous inner class and implement the interface of interceptor. Use the lambda expression and implement the abstract function of intercept. Once you do it, use the chain interface to get the reference to our HTTP request. Let us modify our HTTP request and add some headers to it. Then add our first header. This time I am not going to hardcode it as Android. I am going to use build.device, which will dynamically see the device configuration and add it to the header. Let us format our code and add another header for the language. Again, let us avoid hard coding and use device default language. Finally, build our request. Thereafter, use the chain.proceed function to resume our request pipeline, which allows our headers to be sent over to the server. And finally, return this response. So we are now done with our custom header, which adds some header to our request. Now from our interface class here, let us also remove this header of accept language, because we are already adding it within our custom interceptor. And within our list activity, let us modify our function, such as remove this en from here. Perfect. Now move back to your service builder. And there, if you notice, we already have created our logging interceptor, which we added to our okHttp client. So similar to this, let us also add our header interceptor by using .add interceptor and pass header interceptor. Great. Now make sure you add this interceptor before the logging interceptor, so that in our logcat, all the applied headers will be logged out. And that is it, we are now done. Let us launch our application. Make sure your server is up and running. So here we go in the logcat. If you notice, in our request, we have added our headers. Go to the next page. So every time we make a request, we are adding these headers. So in this way, you can manipulate the outgoing request application-wide using interceptors. Now similar to these two, you can also apply authentication and error handling interceptor application wide. Well, these are again quite useful features of Retrofit. And trust me, in the real application, you would require to apply these. But the topic of authentication is a huge topic on its own, so we will cover it later. So this was a very short video. Thank you.